everybody. Welcome to a little, I guess it's a goodbye kind of little video here we're doing. I just wanted to have a chance to interview Scott and just to talk. We tend to do this every Tuesday morning.
Right.
We get together in my office, and the two of us, we pray together for our church family, for our world, for whatever, when we talk about things that are going on in the church, and nobody else gets to see what's really kind of the discussions that we have in that. And before Scott heads out to his new church in Burnaby, and we want to say hi to everybody from Burnaby too. Maybe at one point you might even see this. But I just thought we've done something a little bit different than a lot of churches have done. And so I just want to talk about that a bit, because we have come together with two churches and learned how to work together as two senior pastors. And we're in a world right now that is struggling with division. Families are struggling. People, if you have different points of view on something, it's like you can't even talk to the person anymore. So I thought I'd just take some time here, and Scott and I would just talk about this a little teeny bit. So as we kind of get started, I want to talk about a call to ministry. You've mentioned that you have felt this call to a specific type of ministry that you're called to, but also to a place you're now heading to Burnaby. Right. What does that call feel like to you? You came here to Cross Current, to a church called Cross Current before we merged. And in your mind, what does that call feel like? And not just for ministry, but for people trying to follow God's will for their life.
Right. Well, for me, when God gives you a call, He puts a desire in your heart.
Yeah.
You know, Psalm 37:4, delight yourself in the Lord, He will give you the desires. And a lot of time we interpret that as, well, if I live right before God, then I'll get all the good stuff I want. The reality is, when we live pleasing to Him, then His desires become our desires. So He puts specific calls. And for me, as a young Bible college graduate, it was a call to ministry, and it was confirmed in several ways. And then when we were leaving the States, we pastored about 19 years in Washington State in the Assemblies of God. And I really felt burdened to come back to Canada and just do my small part to help bring in the harvest in Canada. There's less churches per capita when you look at the population statistics, and less pastors, and just a real need for new churches and for strengthening churches, and just a need to help bring in the harvest. So we had done a short stint prior, but when we came back 6.5 years ago, I felt like this was going to be long term.
Yeah.
And so we came here, and then a few years ago, the Lord called us to the Cross Current. And I had taken an associate position for a little while, getting my batteries recharged and my specific calling refocused. But the Lord made it clear, Scott, you need to be a lead pastor, you need to be shepherding people. So the church had gone through some struggles, but still a neat group of people there for a young church, only about 11 years old. And a lot of people had left because of some things that had happened previously. But there was a core group there, and so we came to mission about 3.5 years ago and felt like, this is kind of a weird situation, but we feel like God is specifically calling us to mission and to this church. And, they were meeting in the theater. We had a lease with Silver City Cinema. And so right away we started to kind of look for other avenues for a place to meet, because we only had it for Sundays, and we're pretty steep lease when you have a major cinema chain that you're leasing space from, and just no doors were opening for places to meet. And then that fall, just a few months after we arrived, you and I got to know each other. We connected, and we thought, let's bring our congregations together. And let's do a worship night together, because we're both POC churches, and it really went awesome. The people really loved it. And so we started to vision cast what it would be like to bring these two churches together. And you opened up your heart, and it had kind of already been on your heart. That was cool, and it just really matched what I was feeling too.
It's interesting, because when I first got here to Bethel, the Cross Current had been running for a few years already, and they were doing really well. It was a great little church. But it was the same denomination. And so a lot of people in our church didn't like them because they were the same denomination. They should be coming here, not starting their own. So when I got here, it was a little bit of a weird feeling. I'd meet with the other pastor and with Dan, and we would hang out. And there was animosity a little bit. So it's funny that we actually overcame that and were able to put the two together. So just another thought I got here. When we first met and we started talking about working together, what kind of thoughts went through your mind? Because this isn't something that is easy to do, to put two churches together. There's different styles. You also have two leaders who have little different styles and different visions.
Sure.
So what kind of was going through your head? Because I know for me, I was thinking it would be a good thing, but at the same time, there's the vision and two people trying to work together.
Yeah. It's a great question, Ken. And, we were just getting to know each other, as a new relationship. And I certainly believe, as I'm sure you do too, and I know our district does, in church multiplication. I planted a church back in 2000 in Des Moines, Washington, just south of Seattle, and we need to continue to do that. But then there are a lot of struggling churches, and recently in the POC, the idea of revitalization is coming more into focus because a lot of churches are plateaued and some are in decline. And I've been in both roles, associate and senior pastor, and I know you have too. And I remember you and I talking, we met at Starbucks, and we've been vision casting and things, and I think I made the comment at the time, if we're going to do this, you just got to check the ego at the door.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not about us, what I want to see happen, my big dreams and aspirations. It's all about what does God want and what's best for his church. And, our church, because of some fallout that had happened before we came, they were down to about 50 people at the time that had once been over 200. So there was this core group that was still there, great people who still wanted to make an impact in the Fraser Valley. And you and your wife had led this church into a real season of growth. And then, different things happened kind of in that plateau range.
Yeah. So,
I knew that we could bring some real committed, faithful workers that were willing to work hard and very involved in the church and givers financially. You guys also had a base of workers here and also had a facility, but maybe weren't able to get some of the things done at that point that you'd wanted to. You'd done some things with the facility and stuff, but you kind of reach a certain point where you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a win-win where, like Ken Russell says, better together.
Better together.
Right? Stronger together.
A shout out to Ken on that one.
Yeah,
exactly.
Pull our resources because it's all God's church. And we can keep doing our thing, you can keep doing your thing. But we felt like at that time, and I believe it is true, that if we come together, we're going to be more effective, stronger, more fortified, and be able to make a greater impact. So we were kind of taking a chance, but we shared enough so I heard your heart. And I could tell that you weren't the kind of guy that's going to want to get his way all the time, that you're willing to give and take. And I knew that I was in a position where I have nothing left to prove. I've been an associate pastor, been a youth pastor, been a senior pastor, a few different churches. And I saw, it's not about Scott, it's not about Ken, it's about God, and it's about what he wants to do through his church. So I figured we'd be on the same page on that.
It isn't always easy, and I have to give you real credit for that because you guys are renting, you came into our building. Right. And so there was a little bit of that, we're stepping into your territory.
Right.
And I have to admit, this has been an amazing journey, and we do have little different, when we came to certain issues, we'd say, I'd like it this way, and you'd say, I'd like it this way. And you have been so gracious to work with in that regard. And you're right. I think if you can realize that you are part of the body of Christ, you're not the whole thing.
Right.
And that way you can recognize and honor the gifts that others have.
That's right.
And you can see where someone else has a strength, and you don't have to be all worried or getting jealous or whatever. You can just default to the other person.
Exactly.
And you've been great that way. It has been a real fun journey. I think we've been healthier. It's amazing, in so many ways we're healthier now than we have been in a long time. So that is kind of neat to do. I want to be real with this thing. So what were the challenges that we faced? Because I know, I'll just give you one. For me, I know I drive you crazy because I'm always wanting to update the technology, change the lighting. I've got different colors. I like to experiment with things. And half the time it works and we learn something new. Half the time it doesn't work. Like even just today, we were trying to do a last refresh. The video was all out of whack. It was cutting off on us. And so you have really had to just grin and bear it, because you like to get it working and then just go with it.
Yeah.
So I apologize for
No,
that.
no,
I hope
okay.
in your new church you will find people that will just run things very smoothly.
No, again, it's been so much more positive than anything else. I mean, there have been little things that you and I have both had to make adjustments. And that's the thing, if you work together, and not only in a co-pastorate, but in a marriage, in a workplace, you got to be willing to give and take. And, as a lead pastor, if I'm just leading my own church, basically I receive a direction I feel from the Lord, and I implement it. And if it's something, where it deals with board matters, we run it to the board.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a coach and their team, and you have your staff. But as a co-pastor, if I have an idea, I need to run it to you to make sure that you're on board, and vice versa. And obviously for both of us, that's been at times a little bit challenging, but also the flip side is it's been a good sounding board. We've got someone we can share ideas with and get feedback. And but that can be a little bit different. And our style is similar, definitely similar, but somewhat different. And that's been okay. I'm like you're definitely an excellent teacher. I'm kind of a preacher teacher. And so whereas you might be comfortable sitting down on a stool from time to time and interview something,
I like
to move around a little bit more, right? But I think our congregation has benefited because they've had a representation of both styles, and I think it's been a good thing. But there's just those little things where we have to give and take, compromise from time to time.
So what happens in your heart, because you have done this really well, that's why I kind of want to even do this video, when I've kind of really felt I want to do something,
Right.
You have been very willing to say, okay, if that's a big deal to you, let's go. How do you do that? In a minute, when you have a call, you're feeling like, this is more my thing, but I'm going to default here. What happens in your heart and mind when you have to do that?
The message stays the same. It's all about Christ, His Word, the great commandment to love God, love each other, and the great commission to make disciples.
So you'd correct me if I started going off base on that.
Well, the other thing is just methodology. The message stays the same. The methodology can change. So you have to come to understand that if it's just methodology, we're not going to die on that hill. So if either of us were to go off the rails theologically, we would check each other on that. But say, hey, I'd like to do a certain deal, let's change up the platform, let's do a different midweek program, a different discipleship course. Even if it's not necessarily my thing, but if it still accomplishes the mission of the church, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And if it's something you feel passionate about, I know that you've had that same kind of support towards me, if I felt like let's do something, and sure, go for it. So you got to be willing to give each other rope, and as long as it accomplishes the mission of the church, right? Methodology can change, and it continues to change today.
So what would you say? How do we make, just in our context, how do we make it work? And also, what would you say to people that are finding that in their own workplaces? Because we're seeing a lot of division right now.
Exactly.
Our world, there's very few people in the middle on a lot of the issues today, whether it's politics, whether it's viruses, whether it's faith, gender issues. I mean, so many things.
Yeah.
We're really polarized.
Right.
And I can understand people holding to a position strongly, but you're seeing a lot of anger when against the other people.
Right.
In our case, there are some things that we've had different points of view on, but how do you get away from finding that anger and somehow hold to a position? And you've told me that. You said, I disagree with that, Ken, and that's fine. We have a different point of view, but there has never been that anger.
Right.
And I'm seeing that so much. What would you say to people who are facing that in their workplaces or in different situations in life?
Well, as Christians, we know that we're representative of Christ, and part of that is our personal character development. The more we grow in Him, Paul says, I decrease so that He can increase, right? So
that's a good key right there. Your ego disappears
checking
when
in at the door.
Christ becomes...
Right, because it's all about Christ, and the Bible also says to put the needs of others before your own. So not that you might feel a little, but that's just the flesh. But again, if it's just different points of view, let's make sure that we take a stand and plant our flag on the hills that matter. Right? Are the fundamentals of our faith, our relationship in Christ, our love for God, our family, our church family. The stuff when it comes to methodology, styles, the color of the carpet, the kind of stage you have set up, even some of our things that were happening in our world, we don't always agree. But as Christians, we have to always keep in mind that I want Christ to be honored in my life. Our lives are meant to be worship, right? Romans 12, present your bodies as a living sacrifice, which is reasonable worship. And so, am I going to honor God when I start to rant and rail in the workplace or online because I don't like a policy? Is that going to bring honor to Him, or is it just going to add to the polarization that you mentioned? Yeah, we take a stand for righteousness, and it's okay. We can voice our opinions as citizens through our votes, through our legislature. We have a voice, but we also have to remember that we want to lift Jesus up, and we can either draw people to the Lord, or we can cause them to run away from Him by our actions. So we need to represent Him in a positive way.
Well, Scott, you have done that very well.
Oh, thank you.
And I've told you this in private, but I just want to say it here publicly that you are a man of integrity, and I have enjoyed working with you, and one who has taken the high road in so many times that we've had to work through something or find some way of doing something. So I pray all God's best on your new church. They are getting a great pastor. I am excited for them. We're going to be feeling the ups and downs a little bit here over our Christmas season with you and Kari and Spencer gone. And Coulter too. He's already out on his own.
Yeah.
But they are getting a great pastor, and we're excited for what we're going to hear over there. And so thank you everybody for watching and for being a part of this.
And let me say before we sign off that Ken, you've also been great to work with. I love your heart, and you and I have become friends through this whole thing.
Yes.
And this church has got a great pastor, and so as we leave, that's part of the peace that we have to know that River Valley Church will be in good hands, solid hands, and all as the family of God, we're going to be praying for each other, lifting each other up, and just advancing His kingdom. So
running to each other at conferences and
that's right,
things like that,
and hit Starbucks and Tim Hortons. Yeah.
No, it's been a great time, a great season in our church, and excited for a church that has gone without a pastor for so long.
Yeah,
they're going to have a Christmas this year with their new pastor, so we're
cool.
excited about that. Thank you guys for watching us and joining us. God bless you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.